Representative Matt Krause is a licensed attorney. He represents Fort Worth area and a lot of different parts of this area throughout Fort Worth and Tarrant County. He's been a friend for a long time in the work we do. He's been a champion for religious freedom. He's been someone like myself who worked on court cases related to religious freedom. And so one of the main reasons why the Save Chick-fil-A bill, Senate Bill 1978, is now signed into law is because we have great leaders like State Representative Matt Krause. And I want to welcome him up to the stage to tell you a little bit more about the
Thanks again to Vince and Mona, who put this all together, and that was a quick turnaround because they spent the last week and a half, right, it seems like, in Boston at Fenway Park, and watching the Rangers do really well against the Red Sox for a couple of days. So thank y'all for being here. They're residents of House District 93 as well, and I'm honored to call y'all constituents. But I'm also honored to have my wife and our kids here tonight, who don't always get to come with us. You know, sometimes there's some truths about God that we don't really connect with until you have to live through it, right? A lot of times we quote Romans 8:28, all things work together for good. As long as things are going well, it's easy to say all things work together for good, right? But it's when things start going bad that you really have to hold on to that. I remember last November when Senator Burton, I saw the election results, and I'm like, Lord, how can any good come from this, right? It was so frustrating, but I don't know if y'all have seen what she's doing now as the CEO of what's called the Texan. And if you haven't seen it, it's a new news source. Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage you to check it out. I would encourage you to subscribe to it because they're giving you non-biased, objective reporting journalism, which is a breath of fresh air, which we sorely need. And she's heading up that effort. She would not be able to do that if she was still State Senator Connie Burton, but now as CEO Connie Burton of the Texan, we're getting, it's just incredible what happens. So when the Lord says something, He means it. And one of the office mantras that we had all session was, duty is ours, results are God's. And I don't know if you've ever heard this story, you may have heard me tell it or others, but that quote came from John Quincy Adams, the only president we ever had that went from the White House back to Congress. And when he went back to Congress, all he did was fight to end slavery, time after time, after session, Congress after Congress, and it didn't seem to make a difference. And they finally came up to him and they said, John, you're just beating your head against the wall. You're not making any progress. Nothing's ever happening. Why do you keep doing this? And he said, easy. Duty is ours, results are God's. It wasn't my job to end slavery. It was just my job to continue to fight to try to end slavery as much as possible. Little historical footnote, one of his last sessions, he served with a freshman congressman who only served one term, but that congressman was named Abraham Lincoln. And by sitting at the tutelage of John Quincy Adams, he learned the strategy that eventually became the Emancipation Proclamation. So you may not see your work come to fruition until many years later, but you just got to do what you're supposed to do. So we said that all session, duty is ours, results are God's. And the night our bill went down at the House deadline, I walked back to my office, and the office just kind of looked at me, and we all kind of looked at each other and said, duty is ours, results are God's, right? We don't know what's happening, we don't know why this is happening, but we know that we've done what we were supposed to do, and who knows what's going to happen. So that happened on a Thursday night. The House second reading deadline was on a Thursday night. It was a frustrating night. It was we just poured so much into getting that there, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So we started talking to everybody, as Jonathan said, and nothing happened really over the weekend, Jonathan. Remember, we didn't get much traction. And all of a sudden, I came in on Monday mornings about 12:30 or 1, and they said, oh, hey, Brian Hughes is just about to bring your bill, the Senate bill, up on the floor. Now, we've been told the whole time it's got to be a House bill. And there's reasons for that, as Senator Birdwell can tell you. Sometimes it's supposed to be a House bill, sometimes it's supposed to be a Senate bill. Joan Huffman, who was the chair of State Affairs over the Senate, said it's got to be a House bill. So we tried to do that, and once it got killed, we said, okay, now it's got to be a Senate bill. So can you guys get it? And there didn't seem to be a lot of push for a while. And so that's why I continue to say to everybody I can that Brian Hughes, the senator out of Mineola, East Texas, he's the real MVP of this bill. He's the real reason why Senate Bill 1978 is signed by the governor, because he led the effort in the Senate to get that thing fast-tracked. So we come in about 12:31, no movement all weekend. All of a sudden they said, oh, Brian Hughes has got this bill up. He's calling it up. to see if they can start moving it. There was no objection. He kind of did it in a very strategic way to where there was no objection. And they heard it in State Affairs that day, and they passed it out that day. So Monday, the countdown starts. Well, then a bill has to be read a couple of times, right? And so then you had Tuesday, and then you had Wednesday before the bill could get out. And then the bill has to get referred over to us, right? So it takes a little while. So on Thursday, the bill was coming over to us. We were just about to adjourn for the day, which means any bill that came in after that had to get referred on Friday. And I went into the clerk and I said, hey, is Senate Bill 1978 over for referral yet? They're like, no, not yet. So we kind of stalled for about 5 or 10 minutes when it actually came over from the Senate. And if we hadn't done that 5 or 10 minutes, we would have lost a day and that whole thing would have been shot, because our next Senate bill deadline was the next Tuesday. So everything had to hit right. Jonathan and I kept talking. He kept going to our office every day. And we kept talking every day. And we just kept saying, we got to hit every green light. The Senate has to pass it out on second reading on time. The Senate has to sit down on third reading at the right time. We got to get it referred over to the House. We got to get it read the first time. We got to get it referred to State Affairs. State Affairs has to kick it out. State Affairs has to get all the paperwork out so they can get it to the committee coordinator, who can get it over to the Calendars Committee. Calendars Committee has to get it out within a day. We really needed to be put on major state, and if we do that, then we might have a chance to get it done by Monday, or we're going to miss the deadline. You had to hit all of those milestones. If we had had a hiccup on any one of those milestones, we would not have the bill as we know it today. But we hit green light after green light after green light. Now, coincidence? No. There's no way. In fact, our bill was in calendars for a total of 1 day. State Affairs, Dave Phelan, who's the chair of State Affairs, deserves a lot of credit too when you're hearing from this, because without his active participation, his staff's active participation in getting that bill out, it never had a chance. It got referred on a Thursday, late on a Thursday. He picked it up, got it out of his committee at 9 a.m., about 9 a.m. the next day, had it in calendars by about 2:30 or 3 p.m. that day, and then the Calendars Committee set it for major state that night, which was unbelievable. And so For Price, who's the chair of Calendars Committee, and all the Calendars Committee folks on the Republican side, because it was a partisan split. Our bill was the only bill, I think you may know this, but I don't know if you know this, our bill was the only bill all session they divided out in calendars. Every other bill either went up or down, it wasn't partisan or whatever. This one, there was so much opposition to it on the other side, they had to actually segregate it out, vote on all the other bills at one time, and then vote on ours specifically. That's the only bill they did that on all session, which shows you a little bit of the opposition that we were up against. So we hit every green light. We just kept saying the whole way through, okay, we got to do these 3 things today, but duty is ours, results are God's. Duty is ours, results are God's. And I am convinced, and everybody says, why is this so important? Well, the reason I initially filed the First Amendment Defense Act the session before, as Jonathan said, is because I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Kelvin Cochran. He was the fire chief out of Atlanta, Georgia. He was an incredible fire chief. Obama had appointed him to a couple of positions during his administration. Sterling record, perfect record. Well, all of a sudden he gets fired one day, and they said, why are you getting, what was the reason for termination? Well, he had written a pamphlet for his men's Bible study at his church that defined marriages between one man and one woman. Somebody had complained to the city of Atlanta. They felt that that was discriminatory, and they fired him. They fired the fire chief because he had the audacity to proclaim that marriage is between one man and one woman and believed that at his church. He didn't do that on the job. He didn't do that at a staff hearing. He didn't do that in front of a lot of other. He just did it at his church. So we started thinking, if the government can start penalizing you just because of what you believe, apart from what you're doing, that's a very dangerous place to be. Because there's this thought on the left and other places that the First Amendment protects your freedom to worship. That sounds good, but that's not what it means. The freedom to worship means you go to the synagogue you want to, the mosque you want to, the church you want to. It means you can worship wherever you want to, on Saturday or Sunday, or not worship at all. The Founding Fathers rejected that idea. They gave us the free exercise of religion, which means that transcended outside the 4 walls of the church into everything we did in life, right? No matter where you were, James Madison defined religion as the duty we owe to our Creator and our manner of discharging it. That's not within the 4 walls of the church. That's wherever you are. That's if you're a baker. That's if you're a florist. That's if you're a photographer. That's if you're a fire chief. That's if you sell the best chicken sandwiches that you've ever had in your entire life. It doesn't matter what it is. You are allowed to exercise your freedom of religion wherever you are. And the fact that we've so perverted that idea that it just matters where you go to church on Sunday or where you go to church on Saturday or where you worship. That's not what they had at all. So we've got to continue to fight to make sure that we have the free exercise of religion, not just in Texas, but in America too. I see Glenn back there with the Club for Growth, and I know they are talking to people every day, trying to make sure that they get the right candidates in office who understand those constitutional principles, which is a huge thing. So, but that's why I appreciate Texas Values so much. They do show up every day. They are there every day. It was y'all's idea to bring Chick-fil-A into the process at all. I was kind of working on other things, and I didn't think about the First Amendment Defense Act applying to Chick-fil-A in San Antonio, but it was a perfect, I mean, it really, and I told people, the city of San Antonio really crystallized and clarified why we need to keep fighting for religious liberty. Because you're going to have these attempts over and over and over. I don't know if you saw it at the Supreme Court today, there was some cake bakers out in Oregon that the state of Oregon fined $135,000 because they refused to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding ceremony. Now everybody says you shouldn't refuse service to those, to anybody. I'm not aware of anybody in any of these cases who's ever refused service to anyone. In fact, the florist up in Washington State, she had served the couple that brought an action against her, really the Attorney General in that state brought the action against her for 10 years. So she never refused to serve anybody, she just refused to participate in a ceremony that violated her sincerely held religious beliefs. And if we can't continue to do that in our country, then we are so far afield from what the founders thought, and we will not recognize what our country is anymore. And that's what Texas Values is there doing every day, fighting day in and day out. They're a huge reason we have this Senate Bill 1978. I love working with them on it. They were a huge part of that. Thank you all for all you're doing. Thank you for your support tonight. Thank you for your support, and just in general, God bless you guys.
And since the Krause crew is here, because we know serving in the legislature is a family event, and so to all of the Krause family members that are here today, your wife Jenny, all your beautiful children, thank you so much for being such a support and being such a huge part of this legislative effort and this bill that's now been signed into law.